welcome to this evening's class for the Academy at Syracuse Studios. I'm Jeremy. I'm one of the founders of the Academy at Syracuse Studios, and I have worked with the guest instructor today, I think on somewhere between 13 and 14 movies. I'm sure she's going to correct me on that, and I probably should have done more prep for this intro, but she went to Syracuse University, and she got hooked up with American High coming out of Syracuse University, and has started as a PA in the locations department. Again, I might be making this up, but she kicked so much ass, worked her way up to become the head of locations for American High. Movie after movie after movie, and she is incredible, and you can learn a lot from her. Her name is Emily Campbell. Introduce yourself. There she is.
Hey guys.
All right.
Hello. Jeremy, it was pretty good. No.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm gonna go mute and stop my video so you take over.
Hi guys, thanks everybody for coming and wanting to learn about locations. It's a bit of a different department, so I really appreciate the interest you guys have. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to try to share right now, so bear with me. Okay, can everybody see that? Yeah, yep. Okay, cool. So just to do a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. Going to start off with about me, just a basic overview of the locations department, department breakdown, kind of the process of what is locations and what do we do, what I've done in CMY, and then a Q&A. I really, guys, want this to be as interactive as possible. I just don't want to be talking at you guys for an hour and a half. So like use the hand raise button or just stop me if I'm blabbering and ask away questions. It's a pretty interesting department, I think. So a lot to cover tonight with you all. Let's get started. All right. So as Jeremy stated, I went to Lemoyne College for my undergrad and got my degree in business marketing and had a minor in communications. And I was kind of into business right when kind of the film kind of marketing was turning to all things film, and everything was kind of gearing towards that way. So I kind of fell in love with doing digital media. And I, after Lemoyne, went to and got my master's at SU Newhouse in television, radio, and film. And when I was there, I kind of fell in love with the film industry and kind of all things locations. I've always been in love with property, with, being in charge of, day-to-day activities of running a film set, and kind of wanted to take my business side and my love for film and mesh them into locations. So through that, I moved to New York City. I was there for about 6 months, started my career as a story producer, working on food shows. So basically what that is, if you guys aren't aware, it's a glorified logger. You look at like 10 screens and you're like, oh, this person burnt their cake. This person did that, blah, blah, blah. And so that you can bring that back to the edit. I hated it. I was awful. I am not good at just like looking at things and taking notes. This is not my forte. So when I was in New York, I was taking every meeting possible to get back into what I really wanted to do, which was locations and going back to Syracuse. So while I was out there, I met a producer who was bringing a movie called Clean that was starring Adrian Brody, which was filming in Utica, New York. I was able to jump on that as Jeremy was right, as a PA. I started off as a PA in the locations department. However, that movie, I did really, really well as a PA. So I ended up with the assistant location manager title on that film. And through that film, I got connected with Eric Vinyl and American High out here, and built my way up into becoming the location manager of all CNY films. So that was about 5 years ago now. And now I head up the locations department with American High and Outside Movies. We've done 20 films as a location manager in CNY. So super exciting. And then with that, I've also started doing real estate as, you know, I've been meeting so many people, showing them their, you know, using their properties for filming, that I was like, might as well try to sell and buy some property for them as well. So that's a little bit of a breakdown as who I am. All right. So what are we going to talk about? What is the locations department? So for those of you who don't know, there's a few different roles in the locations department. So there's my job, which is the location manager, which you are the public face of the production. So think of it as like a lot of people don't know, especially in CNY, what the film industry is. And some people don't even realize that there's movie making here. So my role is to, when we knock on doors, to explain, hey, we're not a scam, we're a real thing. We're trying to make a movie here and we want to use your property and this is real and we're going to give you money and insurance and it's going to be amazing and you're going to be on Hulu. It's kind of just like the face of the movie to the real world. So I do a lot of the liaison work, a lot of the setup work and aftermath work, working with the county, working with the state, working with municipal agencies, all of that to kind of just be the face of the film. Then there's what is called the assistant location manager. And that is my right hand girl or guy who's, you know, in the trenches day to day, kind of working on set. So they're pretty much, just think of it as an extension of myself. A lot of the times they're the one who is on set through the day to day. So a lot of my role happens before filming and after filming, or I'm the one always thinking ahead to the next day. You know, our next location or our previous location, you know, what location we just finished filming at, or the following location when the assistant location manager is dealing with the day-to-day film set. So that's kind of the difference there. Then there's a role called a film scout, which is this person's role is solely to go find locations. They're either really good at knowing a bunch of different unique spots. They're very good at taking photos and videos and just going out and laying the groundwork. So like, for example, say I have a film that needs, you know, houses or a bowling alley or whatever, you hire a location scout to go out and find me 10 different of those properties and bring them back to me so that I can go pitch them to the production team. And I'm just doing a general overview, guys. There's a lot that goes into those roles, but that's kind of the gist of it. Then there's a department coordinator for the locations department. That role is mostly working with the production office and each department on the daily needs. So, you know, I don't know how familiar you guys were with each different department, but there's a role that are like on-set dressers who kind of design, you know, the sets. So they work a lot with the coordinator to see, okay, we need X amount of days before to get into a location, X amount of days to wrap out the location. Directors need time to rehearse in a location. So they do all that logistical coordination of, you know, getting into locations, getting keys, you know, making location maps, which we'll get into later. Just all the secretarial work that, you know, we as location manager or the assistant location manager might not have time to do. And then there's the location assistant or unit PA, as we call it. And this person is the heart and soul of the locations department. So they are the ones who are physically at my sets, you know, as I call my glorified event coordinator. They're putting up signs, they're, you know, putting up cones to secure parking. Think of it about a wedding. Who's doing the cleanup work, right? They're doing the trash, all the trash that needs to be taken out of locations. They're setting up, you know, our catering tents that have, you know, that need to seat 100 people. If it's a winter movie, they're setting up our heaters. They're, you know, putting isomalt down everywhere to keep safety. They're the day-to-day operations of the locations department. And these women and men work extremely hard to make sure that everything is going smoothly. So that's kind of the basic roles. I will say on the films that we do in Syracuse, a lot of these roles mesh together. So when you're working on like a larger movie, you know, you'll have a location manager, and then you'll have maybe 3 assistant location managers, 2 location scouts, a department coordinator, and probably, you know, 3 or 4 location assistants whose role as a location assistant, they're just on one property for an entire film. On our films here in CNY, just to bring it back to our area, you know, I usually have a team of 4, maybe 5 if I'm lucky. So a lot of these roles mesh together. You know, I usually don't probably have a coordinator, a location scout. I'll have a few man days for location scout, but I'll do a lot of the scout work. And then I'll have like 1 or 2 location assistants. So it can go, you know, to a bigger scale movie, you know, where you have a huge team, and it can really get down to, you know, a team of 4 or 5 people doing all these roles into one. Does anyone have questions about the role breakdown or want any more clarification on that? No.
Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, when you're like location scouting, or when the location scouts are do that, what specifically are you looking for most of the time in terms of like logistical stuff for camera setups and sound and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I send out a location scout or myself, some of the biggest things you're looking for, I'll break it down into sound first. Obviously, you know, if you're on a lower budget movie who can't shut down major highways, which is another role of locations, right? We're shutting down roads and things. You don't want to be putting you don't want to be showing them something that we can't feasibly do. So let's say there's a location that could be perfect, but it's next to a major throughway, which I can't shut down because we don't have the money to do, right? So it could be the perfect location, but you have to go back to, okay, what kind of budget am I working with? Do we have the opportunity to shut down this highway and reroute traffic to fall in love with this location? If not, I'm never going to pitch that because I don't want them to fall in love with it. Also, like logistics, is it in the batshit middle of nowhere? Do I have, you know, honey wagons? Do we have green room trailers? If not, and we're, you know, another part of our job is to find green rooms and bathrooms and catering locations, I'm probably not going to pitch a remote location where we wouldn't have that support. So that's a great question. It kind of depends on the budget of the movie and what kind of support we'll have in terms of location. If that answers your question. Yeah. You know, another thing is when we're pitching locations, which I'll get into, we want to show, you know, sometimes there's like the perfect location, right? I'll maybe show 4 or 5 properties. Other times, you know, you're working with the production designer and everybody, and I'm showing 20 properties and we still haven't found it and what that is. So there's kind of just like a scale of what is the property, you know, are we all on the same page as what that could be, which I'll get into. And then logistics and sound issues would be secondary that goes into that. Okay. Okay. So I really wanted to just break down what location management is and kind of the workflow process of, you know, when I'm hired on all the way to the end. So we're going to break down each one of these and talk through it. But as a location manager, after the director is assigned, I'm usually pretty much the next phone call to start the process. So we're going to go into like reading script, breakdown to location list, to the brainstorming with creatives, to scouting, present findings, making the deal, the logistics, filming, and the restore. So that's kind of the workflow of the location management department. All right. So when I am brought on to a project as the location manager, the first thing that I'm given is an introduction. Usually like Jeremy or Will be like, hey, Emily, here's the director, here's the script, read it and let's set up a creative meeting. So the first thing I do when I'm given a script is I'll first read it for enjoyment, right? Because we all want to read a script for enjoyment, but then I'll read it as a location mindset. So the biggest things that I look into for a script is how many sets there are and the breakdown. So I kind of did a little picture for you guys. I'll break it down into like how many sets there are, how many scenes there are at those sets. So like let's for example, interior dress store, I broke down into I need a changing room and a cash register, and it's during the day. So I'll just start making a log of every single thing that I need at a location and the amount of locations I need while I read the script. I also look at, is it interior, is it exterior, is it day, is it night? In my mind, I'll start thinking about how many days I'll be at that location. So like by script page count, I can kind of gauge, okay, is this like a half a day of filming, a full day of filming, or are we going to be here for multiple days? So you'll be like, oh, I see there's like 6 script pages or, or more. I'm like, okay, that's a day and probably another day added to it. So I get in my mind, I start thinking for my budget and for what we're doing, how many days I'll need a location for. I'll also look at what's happening in the scene. Is there fire? Is there a road closure needed? Do I have talent? Is there a stunt? That's a huge thing. Is there a car stunt that's going to take place where I'm going to need police lockup? I'm going to need, ambulance on standby. All these things that I have to think about for when we get into the permit process and kind of just start gauging what this film looks like. So that's my first step when I read a script, looking at all those things and how it pertains to locations. Any questions on that? Anyone?
Not a question, but kind of just an interjection, because I know a bunch of you are recently joining us as interns. This is your first semester with us. When I was an intern, this was actually one of our assignments, was location scouting for Miguel, kind of breaking down a script like this and then finding places that fit it as like that first step. So just kind of not a question, but just an interjection of like, these are the type of things that you guys can really get hands-on during this internship.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, each department is going to read a script differently, right? Like a props department, they're going to be looking at like how many different watches I need or whatever. Locations, you really are looking at like the logistics of, is this a stage build? Is this like a practical location? Are we interior, exterior? For example, like the Binge 2, it was a Christmas movie, right? Well, we didn't film it in the winter time. We needed fake snow. So like, that's the thing that I was thinking about, how that's going to relate to what we can see on camera. Or, recently we had, or I'll just think back to the original Binge where we did a huge road. There was a limousine that had to drive through over a bridge, and we had to do a stunt where something almost collided and there was a cow that they had to hit into. So just as, locations, Emily, where can you find a bridge? There's an intersection that you can close it down for a long period of time, where we can bring in a field with a cow. Just all these kind of things that you kind of start having to think about when you're reading a script. And if there's fire too, that's a huge another thing. I have to bring in like a fire marshal. All these things that people don't think about go into locations. It's not just finding the space. There's so much more. I see like hand raised, yeah.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to ask, when you read like a script and you read it twice, do you do that like back to back, or do you find that you have to like take a little bit of time in between to think about like what will be the best fit for the story?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. Sometimes I'll just like, I'm so excited about, starting a new project that I'll read it through. I mean, I will say when I'm reading it through, I've just done this so much that I can't really, I try to read for enjoyment. In the back of my mind, I'm like, there's a huge explosion. I'm freaking out inside. I'm like, but like most of the time I try to like sit with it, take that time and read it for enjoyment. Cause this is why we're in this business. We love movies and filmmaking. Just so I can get a general overview of the entire script. And then when I read it the second time, I'm not really reading it. I'm mostly doing it for like logistics in my head. So I'm breaking it down mostly. And just doing like what you see here, the breakdown list. Yeah, I'm not usually reading it a second time through. I'm mostly just going through everything and making sure I'm hitting key points. It's more of a note-taking, I would say, reading experience. Okay. All right, so then after that, after I do my breakdown, I'll have a Zoom or it's usually a Zoom or a phone call with the creatives, because like I said, I start usually at minimum 5 weeks before anyone else starts pre-production or is on the ground in Syracuse. So a lot of the times everybody's still in LA or New York, so we'll do a Zoom call. And on this Zoom call, I'm usually brought in with the DP, the director, and the production designer. And during this time, I try to become very close with the production designer, because they are my right hands throughout the picking of locations, right? Because they're the creative vision behind what it's going to look like. So I really want to make sure I'm on the same page with him or her, because they are ultimately helping pitch these locations to the director and DP. Each project's kind of different on how that works, but mainly my main concern is to become best friends with the production designer and become on the same page with them. Because if you have them in your right-hand corner, let's say I can go to him or her and be like, hey, like, I had this location, but it's a logistical nightmare, but this other location maybe doesn't fit as well, but like, if you could design this and convince them, it's going to make everybody's experience so much better. So it's very important for me to try to, you know, start a good friendship with the production designer and become on the same page. So usually during this Zoom meeting, I try to gauge like everybody, see where they're at creatively, and I'm usually handed a lookbook or a mood board on what the feel for the project looks like. So I pulled some things from our recent movie we just did called Prom Dates, that's not out yet, on kind of like what a lookbook that I'm given looks like. So when I'm reading the script, you know, in there, there'll be like a backyard show location. And so I could have an idea in my mind of like, oh, what am I looking for? And then kind of work with the production designer to see if I was on the same page with them. Especially when it comes to houses, it's really important for me during this meeting to kind of gauge who are these people, right? So like questions I'll ask during this meeting will be like, okay, there's the character Greg, and we spent a lot of time in his house. I think, you know, he's more upper middle class. You know, the mother might be like, there might be notes about the mother being like a clean freak. So I see everything very stale or whatever. It's very important for me during this time to get each location's vision, so that when I'm scouting or sending out a scout, I'm on the same path, and that we're not wasting time looking at, you know, a lower income house or a mansion when it's a middle class family house. So during this time, it's really important to just make sure everybody's on the same page when it comes to what the locations may or may not look like. You know, but however, one of my favorite things during this time is to pitch things that they might have not thought about. So for example, so for this film, we had a backyard party that we needed a location for. There was 2 other locations in this film that was just like exterior parties. And I was like, hey, like, could it be something else other than a backyard party? Could it be, let's say, like a warehouse space? Like, what else could we offer this film? And we ended up going with like a warehouse space for like a location that was originally written as an exterior shot. So that's kind of like what I love, being able to be like, hey, does it need to be like a backyard party, or could it be, what else could we do with locations that could be super cool that you guys didn't think of, or that we have in Syracuse that no one else has access to? So that's kind of the process of that. Any questions on that? Anyone want to chime in? Nope. Okay. So once I have that meeting, then either myself or a scout will go out and start trying to find these properties. Usually it's me and potentially one other person starting, because I have such a big database at this point. Usually I can start just pitching things right away that I have in my files. But if it's a unique location, then we'll need to spend some more time on it. So kind of how the process works is, okay, so we did the script breakdown. I had the creative meeting. Now, Emily, go out and go find shit. Like, go get lost and come back, and hopefully you show us, 10 to 15 properties per location that we can go and talk about and discuss if we like these or if we need to see more. So what a lot of location managers use is a website called SmugMug, which is a photo site that is allowing us, which you'll see here, to create different folders per project. So what I have is like a large database, let's say, of Syracuse, and then in that file will be like all our houses, all our ranks, everything that I've scouted from past films that I can take from and put into, let's say, like here I have like Miguel Wants to Fight, and I can start piecing together a database of photos for them, the creatives, to see. Usually how the process works is I'll have this meeting and I'll have probably a week to present some findings and then get notes on those findings, and then spend a week more trying to find more or starting the lock process. So that's kind of that situation. If I have a scout on, I'll give them specific notes like, hey, we need a location that is X amount of minutes away from our production office, needs to have a structure on site, needs to have X amount of acres, needs to be by water, needs to have docks. I give them very specific notes. I might even have locations that I'll pitch to them to go out and find. And then I expect findings from that scout that night. So they would have access to upload onto my SmugMug, and then I would see if I liked it and if I wanted them to continue on that one location or go find multiple other locations. That's kind of how that process works. When it comes to scouting and taking these photos, I tell them the more photos, the better, right? These people aren't here. They don't know the area. You basically think of taking 360 photos of the entire property. Every single corner of every single room, we want to take a photo of so that they can feel like they're in the space and get a real idea for it so that they won't overlook it. Or they'll be like, hey, Emily, what was in that corner? Oh, well, I'm able to show you because I took a photo of it. You never have to want to go back and take more photos. You want to get as many photos as possible while you're there. When you're scouting as well, you want to take photos of what's also close by. So I always tell them within 500 feet from the property, I need to see what's there. I want to see what's across the street. I want to see what's next door. I want to see what's behind so that I know logistically what we're dealing with at that location. And then if I'm not physically there for the scout, I want notes on who the contacts are. I want their availability. I want, did they talk, were they asking questions on price? Were there hard no dates that they could do? All this information so that when I have it, I can make these phone calls and have a smoother lock experience, or I know it's completely available before I pitch it to the creative team. Okay. So after we scout, and everybody's kind of landed, it kind of depends on the film. Some films I'll have the DP and director just be like, I'm in love with this location, go lock it before they've even seen it. Others, we'll wait until they're here and we'll go look at our top choices and they'll see it in person and then we'll lock after. It kind of depends. But how that process works is, after the scout or myself have seen it, I'll sit down with the location and work out a deal. Here I did an example of like our location contract and kind of what it looks like. We'll spell out everything from them, from, the dates and times we need it to what we're taking from them to price, all of that we work out so that, there's no questions. And I make a budget, so I know what numbers I need to be at that I, get approved from the line producer. But the deal making process is probably, one of the biggest things. If you do not want to lose that deal, if I show the the director or DP or everybody and they fall in love, I'm not taking no from an answer. I'm working with everybody I possibly can to get this property. You know, I'm calling in even the film commissioner. If let's say someone's skittish, I'm calling in everybody because I'm not taking no for an answer situation. So I would say like most of the time we're making the deals probably 3 weeks to 2 weeks out from filming. And how I make the deals are I work a lot with the first AD, who is the schedule guru, and we work hand in hand to make sure, okay, I can get this restaurant, but I can only get it on a Monday. You need to make your schedule, our filming schedule happen so that we can get this location on a Monday, and things like that. Or, you know, I can get this location for a lot cheaper if we film on a Thursday. Can you manipulate the schedule so we can work around that? So I work a lot with the AD on creating our filming schedule because a lot of it will be, it's not just actor dependent, it's also location dependent. And when I can get into properties, when I have to be out of properties, when we're working with set deck and all of those kind of ins and outs. You know, during this time, I'm also working with our set deck team to determine, okay, we're in a property. We can have 2 days of prep there and 2 days of wrap. Can you make it happen? Which means, you know, let's say I'm in someone's house and the bones of the house are great, right? They fell in love with like the windows, the architecture, but the furniture is awful and the painting is awful and they hate everything about it. It's my job to make sure that we can get enough time in that space. So what that means is we're a glorified moving company. We're taking out everybody's furniture. We're repainting the walls. We're completely transforming these people's houses. We're putting their furniture in storage. We're moving them to a new house. You know, we're doing all these ins and outs so that we can film there maybe for even 1 or 2 days and then wrap it up. So, you know, some of the times homeowners love what we've done. Some of the times they hate it and they want everything back to original. So that means we're repainting their house back to its original colors. We're bringing back all their furnitures. So it's all these logistical things that I have to then work out into a deal with that location. So like I said, it's a lot of planning, and, you know, walking through everything with these homeowners or business owners. And bringing it back to Syracuse, you know, in LA or New York City, they're used to filmmaking, right? Like you'll go knock on a door and they'll be like, oh, this is my rate. Here, people don't understand really what goes into the process. They're like, oh, you can use my house or business. They think it's for 1 day. They're, you know, you really have to hold their hand and walk them through the process of, okay, we're about to turn your world upside down. You know, I always say it's like the circus comes to town. We pop up our tents, we're here, and we start getting just a little bit annoying, and then we're moving on to the next spot. But yeah, you really just have to walk through with them. You know, we're gonna be taking everything out of your home. We're gonna be repainting, and you have to trust me that, like, you know, you can't watch anything either because, you know, it's all, you got to go somewhere else during this time. And then you have to trust me that I'm going to put everything back in your home just the way it was, repaint it, put everything there like we were never there. So it's a big ask, and it's a big trust in me. And that's like one of the biggest things about being a location manager is just being able to build trust with your clients and your community. You know, my reputation is only as good as my last film. And that is the biggest thing for me, to be able to go back to a home 3 or 4 times to film in because they've just had such a great experience. So my goal is to never leave someone with a bad taste because we always want to be welcome here. So just really having to walk them through and understand that everything's going to be in good hands. So that's kind of the big part of the deal making process, to just, you know, make sure that they have faith that everything's going to be okay. Okay.
Emily, I have a question on deal making? I know we put in all this pre-production and planning work, but
Yeah.
even still, sometimes you can't help things going wrong. When you
Yeah.
like one of the last films I worked on, we had a house that was right by a lake. It had this really long driveway, and it rained the night before, so the driveway was all mud. Trucks got stuck. The
Yeah.
driveway was just a mess. So when you do leave a bad taste in someone's mouth like that, then what's kind of the follow-up there? How do you like
Yeah. I'm
repair?
gonna get into that a little bit in my restore, but it's just hopefully like for me, it's like creating a good rapport with them before filming, right? And also while you're filming, to just have them feel like involved and excited about them, bring them around set. Like obviously you don't want them there the full time, but like you're like, hey, like I can get you on set for like an hour, really just building up like respect and care, and take the time to really get to know them. So then when you have this aftermath, they're like, okay, yeah, like it rained. Obviously, like shit happens. And just reassure them that I'm going to fix it, right? So at the end of the day, we're going to make it right. And just tell them like, God forbid it has to be an insurance claim and it gets to that point, it's a longer process at that point. You're talking about, maybe a month long or 2 month long process that you might have to work with them. But most of the time you just like assure them, hey, I'm going to have this. We're going to get it through it. We're going to fix your, a broken window or your lawn. Like, and it's going to be okay. So for me, it's always like, you plan for things to happen. You hate when they do, but it's just having like that openness with them. Like, it's going to be okay. We're going to fix it. We're going to get this done. And how would you like me to fix it? Do you want me to hire someone to fix this? Can we reach a monetary settlement? Can we reach a financial settlement? Or, is it something crazy where we have to then go to our insurance claim? But I always tell them they're not done with me until they sign this form that says they're not going to sue us, So like, they're never done until they're completely satisfied with the project. And yeah, I mean, shit happens. We just did a film where we had giant condors on this farm, and they unfortunately, it was a hot day, they melted the driveway. And we had to at that point bring it to an insurance claim. But because like we were we had built up a good a relationship with each other, we got it done. We were able to mend that. And there are people you kind of too, when I meet people, you kind of know who they are and how they're going to be with filming. And I kind of try to gauge who I'm showing properties to. Like if they're very much like crazy about their home and I know like a bunch of stuff is going to happen there, I might not pitch that home. It's just like another thing, like just being in a location manager, things that you're thinking about when you're pitching people's property. Just because you might have found a great spot doesn't mean it could be great in other ways. So like homeowners or logistics, as we were talking about, noise. It's just really knowing your film, your budget, your client, and what you can provide for them. So it's a lot of that as well. Okay. Yes, I see a hand raised.
Hi, thank you again for meeting with all of us today.
Yeah.
But I have like one quick logistical question, kind of like if you're going about the planning of locations and you're about to start production, you start filming, you have everything ready, but 2 weeks before like something bad happens with the location, kind of like similar to what you guys were talking about, but it's one of those situations prior to filming and you have to reroute to another location.
Yeah.
So whenever you're in the middle of pre-production, are you normally in discussions with other properties while you're going about it? Or once you're kind of like at that negotiation point and you're kind of like sit on that one place, do you kind of like have those fallback options, or what's normally your line of action?
For sure. I mean, obviously, you never want to lose the main location, and you first will try to go about everything you can to save that location, right? So even if it's like it's going to rain and we can't film there, it's like an exterior, it's I'll work with the AD to see like, okay, can we change this in the schedule, blah blah blah. Or if it's as bad as like for some reason, God forbid, we just lose the location, I will have like fallback locations where I'm like, okay, I know that I can get this location in the drop of a hand, right? Like I can call them up and we'll have it. So you always in the back of your mind definitely want to have backups. But I will say, like, we will try our hardest no matter what to try to make that first location work, even if it means changing schedules. But with actor availability, sometimes that doesn't always pan out. But yeah, so I always will have like, okay, this is might not be your ideal location, but we can make this work. Or let's say for some reason I can't get this location to work with the budget guidelines. When I'm in that negotiation, I don't tell the runner-up or like the third runner-up that I'm made a deal until that deal is definitely in place, right? So I'm still keeping them in my back pocket, and I'll have that as a pitch to later on happen.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes, Renee?
I have a question. When you're doing the property location searching, do you work with realtors, property management companies to find just vacant houses, vacant apartments?
So what's great is I'm a real estate agent. No, so yeah, so I have that network now. I have just been doing this honestly for so long now in Syracuse, and Syracuse is like a smaller market that I just know a lot of people, and I have just a very large database that I rely solely most of the time on my own network to find places. I'll even post on like my social medias that will get a lot of traction and how I find a lot. But let's say there is like a harder property. I do have a few people that I definitely have reached out to help find in the past, especially if it's very, very specific. But I am in like a good space at this point that I can pretty much, find it on my own, which is nice. Or, like I said, I'm hiring a team that if it's not me, my team in their connections will have it. Like my assistant, my right hand. I usually work with another girl named Nazarene who's from the area. So if it's not in my network, I really would rely on her and her network. And like I said, between my team, we can usually, find it within our own.
Right.
Yeah, because the thing I don't like to do when I work with, let's say, a property manager or another real estate agent is they're going to want a finder's fee. They're going to want to cut from that. So I try to just find it myself so that we're not spending even more money on like freaking finder's fee when, why did they hire me, at that point. But that's just me being a little cocky, but no. But yeah, I mean, to your point, if I'm like in a really need something specific, I might reach out to them now, or reach out to my brokerage that I'm in.
I used to sell real estate, so in my mind, that's what I was thinking. All the vacants out there and everything could be put to good use. But
yeah, and also like I will say like our film commissioner's office, they're helpful too. They might have stuff, or especially when it's working with county properties, because we've used a lot of county properties in the past. So getting those connections as well as someone, I'll rely on him more than going to a property manager or another agent to find something that I can find myself. Yeah. Okay. So after we have the location, I say that that's when a huge amount of my work starts, right? So I go from finding to, I say, a glorified event manager, right? We are planning day-to-day operations of a film, ins and outs, every single day for 28 days to 30 days of this filming. So what that means is permits, where's base camp and holding, catering, talent green room's going to be, truck parking, notices, and location setup. So I'll kind of break that down. So once we found our location, so once I found the house that we're going to be at, right? I know it's going to be in the village of Liverpool. So I'm going to have to fill out a film permit for them, which is going to outline every single day we're going to be filming at that house or in the area, what we're doing there, how many out, when we're starting our filming, when we think we're going to be ending our filming, how many vehicles are going to be on site, how many trucks are going to be on site, Is there any pyrotechnics that are going to be happening? Is there child actors? Is there, road closures that are going to need to get taken place? So this is really like all the secretarial work. So I had to provide all of that into a film permit that I have to have weeks prior to filming, so that we can make sure when we're on site that is all locked into place. I cannot be filming at a location unless anyone asks me, show the public a permit that we're allowed to be here through a specific time frame, so that if anyone comes up to me, no questions can be asked. Or so the police know, the fire department knows, the town knows that they get phone calls. There's no question. Everybody knows we're here. I also have to fill out state permits, county permits, town permits, so that everybody's on the same page that they know filming's here. So that's the biggest thing. That's why I start so much earlier than everybody else, so that we can film when we need to film. So once the whole permit and usually a permit will take me about 2 or 3 days to complete, and it's over usually, oh God, depending on the film and how many locations I have, it's usually roughly 60 pages long. And that's providing documentation of exactly aerial maps of where we're going to be, specific streets that we're going to be on, every single property we're going to be at, time frames. And like I said, like all those logistics have to be in this permit. And then I have to go to a permit meeting with usually the city and walk through each step of what we're doing there. So it is very, very important to get that done right away, so that I know for sure that we can film at these locations. Or if there's an issue as to why we can't, that I can make sure that we can, make sure that we can fix that issue so that we can film there. So that's step one, the permit process. It's pretty insane, the permit process. So, I mean, if anyone ever wants to see what one of these permits looks like, you can email me and I can send you over a copy. It's pretty interesting, but I won't bore you to go through the entire permit. It's my least favorite thing about my job, but yeah, but it's the most like very, very important. So with that being said, so once we also have the location, depending on the film and what we're able to support vehicle wise, I then have to go into finding all our support spaces. So, all right, I found this farmhouse, but where are we going to keep talent? Where are we going to put 100 background? Where's catering going to be? Where's our trucks going to park? So all those things I then have to go and find and lock as well. So some films will carry like bathroom trailers, will carry talent green rooms and trucks and things like that. But a lot of these lower budget $2 million projects, we don't want to hire more Teamster drivers and have these trucks. So it falls on the locations department to then find all of these additional support spaces. So let's say there's, 7 talent, 50 backgrounds, and a total of, let's say, 200 people that have to eat. So normally then I'm finding another house I can rent out just to put base camp, talent, hair and makeup, wardrobe need a room. Like I said, hair and makeup, base camp, our AD department need a room that they can be at to make sure all the talent can get ready and go to set. Let's say that this is a party scene and we have 50 background. Is there room for me to put a tent with sides and heaters on set? I mean, ideally that's what the AD department's going to want. Or do I have to find an additional spot for them to be at during this time? So it's another question. Can our trucks park close to set? If it's an exterior shot, are we seeing the outside of the building? Then no. So what streets can I put trucks on? Are the streets wide enough for me to put trucks on? Is there a parking lot close by I could put the trucks in? I have, let's say, 100 and something cars I have to park on site. Where's the closest parking lot that I can rent out to put all the people, all their cars in? Do we need a bus to then take from where everybody parked their cars to sets. These are all the things that my team is responsible for figuring out. Usually at this stage, I have a logistics meeting with my AD department, and this is when they start freaking out and they realize, oh, damn, this location is going to be tough. Because, it's ideally, I would love a banquet hall next to my residential house, but usually that's not the case. So then it's like, okay, it's a 5-minute travel time for talent to go to the set, travel back. So it's just a lot of logistics during this time, which a lot of people don't think about. And like I said, another big thing is bathroom trailers. You don't think about it, but you're having a party at your house, let's say, for 3 days with 100, minimum 100 people in and out of your house. You do not want them using your bathroom, or that is a phone call that I don't want to get 2 months later where we destroyed their septic tank. So we're bringing in bathroom trailers, and then it's, am I renting out all the neighbors' driveways at that point? I'm making good friends with the neighbor next door. Hey, I'm gonna, for $100, can I rent your driveway? Can I put a bathroom trailer here? Can I pop a truck here? Can I put a catering tent in this person's driveway? Can I move out homeowners of the next door neighbors for 2 days while we film to turn that into a cast house? So it's all these little things that it all falls on locations department. It is not just the location, it's everything. We're in charge of, once crew lands on site, how do their entire day. So then another thing is notices. Once we have this, once we've worked with everybody, it is our responsibility to flyer the entire neighborhood or businesses that we're working at to let them know the hours, the times we're going to be there and what we're doing, so that they all have my number and so that we know everybody, so they all know what's going on. It's really important to, when you get to a neighborhood, that everybody knows that you're going to be there, or a business, and that there's no surprises. You just never want to show up in a neighborhood at 5 a.m. with trucks and never tell them. I just like to have those conversations beforehand so that we get ahead of everything. And so then once all of that's done, it is my team's job to do the location setup. So usually what I do is I have people working 2 days prior to when we're filming there, setting up the location. I have security there the night before, holding all the parking. I have, all our set signage is up to direct people how to get to set. And just really the entire workflow of the day falls on my team. And we'll get more into that, but that's the general overview. Any questions on that? That's like a lot. That's where everything starts falling into place. Like I said, the locations department, we're not thinking of the day to day. I have, my location assistant is, I'm always working 2 days ahead or behind. So I'm always dealing with, what did we just leave a location? And okay, where are we going to be tomorrow? And what's going on there that I need to set up? So film and set management. So once we've gotten everything out, once we've notified everybody, once I've got my permits, once I've sent out everybody's all on the same page, what are we doing? So my team is setting up the entire set. We are posting set signs that will point, the crew on how to get to set. We are putting truck signs up so the trucks know where to park. We are putting signs up inside the set to, direct people to the bathroom. If it's a bigger set, let's say I'm in a giant museum, I'm signing throughout the museum on where everybody should go, where base camp is, where restrooms are, so once you're on a location, everybody's not over walkie all day. Hey, locations, where's the bathroom? Hey, locations, where's green rooms? Everybody kind of knows where everything is. It is also super important for my team to be in charge of cleanliness of the set. So we are setting up trash cans. We are setting up you know, more paper towel, toilet paper, everything you can think about. If there's a spill on set, you know, it's our job to clean up the set, and have that. So we have a truck full of everything you could ever think about, from cones to, you know, bug spray to bee spray to everything, booties for your feet. You know, everything you could think of has to be on my truck at all times. Batteries, if a light bulb breaks, do we have more lights? Just tons and tons of just everyday things that you would not think of, we have to provide and have on deck for all the management side parts. Locations team, we also start usually 2.5 hours before anyone is on set, and we usually wrap 2.5 hours after everybody is gone for the day. We're the first ones there and the last ones to leave. When, you know, we obviously have shifts, but, you know, it is very important for me for that first person to get to set, to know how to get to set. And for when the last person to leave, we're locking that door and we're making sure that location that they gave me the keys for is safe. So then I'll go into, so this is a map of kind of what I'll send my team. So, okay, so to give you content, you'll see set 1. So going into the planning process, this is a map that I'll send my team to set up logistically a day before we come to set. So we were filming at a dress shop in downtown Syracuse. And our crew parking lot, as you can see, was all the way over, like probably 3 or 4 blocks away. So this is a map that I'll send my team to set up set signs throughout all of downtown Syracuse so that they know the logistics of where everything should be. So when crew lands, they can follow my signs all the way to set. So as you'll see, like I'll send them, okay, this is where crew parking signs should be. This is where set signs should be. And these signs guide them all the way to set so that I'm not getting 20 million phone calls the day of where things should be. You'll see that I put like truck parking sign into lot. We have cones down there. It's just organization and making sure things are all laid out is super, super, super important for locations. So that's kind of, this doesn't go out to the crew. This is for my team, but kind of just gives you an idea of all the logistics that I have to think about prior to being on set. Any questions on that? You know, you'll see like where base camp is, where the set is. That's an internal kind of map on what we look at. And then this is, okay, so this is a little bit more generic, but this is a map that I'll send out to crew, right? So, like I said, again, it's all the logistics. So this will show the crew like where they need to park. And then it'll show walking directions on how we get to set, where the bathroom trailer will be for the day, where catering will be, where no one absolutely can't park, clear for picture, where the generator will be for power, where our set is, where our trucks will be, where BT holding is. So it's every single thing that they could possibly need for where things are going to be. The entire crew gets emailed this out the night before filming. And this goes with like your call sheet. Yeah, so like I said, it's you want your maps to be super detailed so that I'm not at 4 a.m. getting phone calls about where they should park and things like that. Another thing that like goes into location is I also hire parking attendants and set security to be with us. So that when you land, let's say I'm, you know, crews parking in an open field, they'll guide them into that, and then overnight security. So that's a big thing as well. Okay. And then after the filming and all of that, then we get into the restore process of my job. And this heavily falls on the location manager. I don't usually have a team with me at this point of the process. So this is, you know, we left a location and we damaged a window, fixing that, or we left a location and we have to get it clean. So we clean locations, fix everything up. And our biggest thing is just to leave everybody happy. Like I said, I'm only as good as my last film and I'm only as good as my reputation. My my bread and butter is to be able to pick up a phone, call someone and be like, hey, Sally, we love to use your house again. And then being like, please, Emily, we'd love to, continue to work with you on another film. Or, hey, John, I'm working with a location. They're a little skeptical on filming. Can I give them your number to give you a call for reference? It's really, really, really important for me, especially in this community and small space, to keep my reputation and to keep American high and to keep everybody happy so that we continue to bring these projects here. I never, ever, ever want to leave the community having a bad taste in their mouth. I just want everybody to be happy about filmmaking and wanting to continue this process. So this is just such an important process, part of the job. I would say like the resource, like my biggest part of the job. It's just making sure, everything's super exciting. And then after filming, you never just want to leave them hanging or leave them unhappy. You just want to make sure everybody signs a release, everybody's left happy, you fixed every issue, even if it's, a month down the road, you're continuing to check in with them, sending them updates on the film, because everybody's just so excited to have this here. And, they're so happy to use this, and to see their property or their house on screen. It's just really important to me to keep these relationships alive. Talking about the strike, we haven't made a movie in 6 months now. Part of it, I love having like these locations that are reaching out to me being like, hey, we know so much is going on. I just want to let you know, like, once the strike is over, please, like, we'd love to like be a part of the filming process again. It's just super important to keep these relationships with the community alive so that, we can continue making movies here. And that's kind of it. That's kind of everything about locations. I'm happy to dive into specific areas or answer specific questions, but there's just so much. That's kind of like the general overview of everything I kind of do. Yes, there's a question.
Yeah, so sorry, were you going for me or CJ?
I don't know. Anyone?
You can go first. It's all good.
Thanks, CJ. So like as someone who's working on like pretty much like shoestring budgets most of the time, are there any like types of locations that surprisingly are like fairly inexpensive or that you can get like a lot of bang for your buck for?
Anything that's county. A lot of the county locations are parks or city locations. When it's only like a permit fee, right? So like our county parks, I'm only paying a permit fee for them. I'm not, worrying about moving out homeowners or shutting down businesses for days. So it's going to be a lot of your county properties that are going to be the best bang for your buck. Like a park fee, I think like I'm pretty positive like my permit fee for a park is like $100 a day. So anything to do with our parks, our county parks is always great. Yeah.
Does that include anything besides parks, like other county locations that you can think of?
It kind of depends. We've used well, yeah, I mean it kind of depends. I mean, here's the thing too. If like you're using, it kind of is the vibe of the movie. Like if you're using like lower, for lack of a better word, lower income homes, there's different levels of what like a location might cost. If I'm working on a mansion, I'm never probably going to be able to provide that homeowner with the funds that they would want to leave their house. You have to find someone who just loves film and wants to use them to use their property. But non-for-profits are always great. Churches are good. Anything that like technically can't take a profit, it's only a donation. That's nice. I never want to be like I'm ripping someone off, but obviously if it's a donation fee, it's not negotiating with closing down a restaurant or a store and looking at their profits that they make during that time. So things like that is always an easier shut down rather than moving a homeowner out or shutting down a business for ample amount of time.
Thanks.
Yeah. Or you just find someone who's really, really excited and you can work out a good deal with them. Yeah. And then is there another question?
Yeah, I just had a quick one. I was just curious, once like filming has wrapped up and permits may have like ended, what's the process for if there's like reshoots or like pickup shots? How do you go about looking for locations like that when you're kind of like maybe having the rush to do so and just get those shots quickly filmed?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. On a lot of the times, what we'll try to do is for a reshoot is it will be a close-up shot. So we'll maybe try to build part of that like little set on a stage, and then it's like, oh, Emily, we use like the homeowner's chair. Can we rent that chair from them for like a day or two and bring it to our film set? Or we need to pick up a quick exterior shot. You know, we can get that back. Like I said, if you have a really good reputation with that homeowner, and if I'm not moving them out and stuff, a lot of the times that you can like, hey, like, can we just do it? And it's a free cost. But it kind of depends on how big of a reshoot it has to be. You know, if we're talking about going back to that location and shutting it down again, it's a bit harder. On these lower budget films, we really don't try to do that. You know, we'll try to like do a close up, or unfortunately that shot just like it's not gonna get made. You know, when we're working on these like micro budget films, or, you know, I'm not going back normally to a location. It's just, you know, doing a little pickup shot. There is times though, like where we've had to go back, and then you're basically, or a lot of the times is what will happen is, for some reason, it was an act of God and we couldn't get everything you needed for filming. And instead of going to the next location, we're going to be there an extra day. And it's just then adding on another rental day. And then our whole schedule gets changed a day, and kind of work around that way. That's a lot of the times if we're feeling like we need another day, or a half a day, what will happen is we'll just all have that conversation. Okay, what will it take for me to buy you out for another day so we can get these shots? And a lot of the times they're not going to be, you know, a jerk and be like, well, you know, you can't get your shots here after I've been here for 2 days, you know, stuff like that.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
Spencer, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought you were gonna call, so I just kind of was
Oh.
waiting. But I guess one of my other questions, I guess, is whenever you're like kind of in the early discussions of a production and you're scouting out a location, what are like, if they're really hesitant to signing out a location agreement, what normally do you do? Or what's something you could do to encourage them to sign it without paying additional money?
So, are you talking about like if they don't really want to sign a contract?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, the contract that we have it's very, very basic. I mean, I always tell them if they're hesitant to like go, you know, talk to their lawyer and they can review it, and then we can negotiate like, is there what don't you like about it? Like, can we change the terminology, things like that? But you know, most of the time, I mean, I have to get a location contract from them. And there's a little bit of leeway. Like, let's say it's just like an exterior shot, like maybe and they will not sign a contract, then, you know, I can kind of do it. But if it's a location I'm going to be at for ample amount of time, like, and we're moving them out and we're doing a lot, yeah, we got to get that contract done. It protects them as well. Like, the contract it's for them as well. Like, if we do something wrong, it's all in writing there. So like I said, I always tell them, like, bring this to if they're hesitant, bring this to your lawyer, have them look it through. If there's anything, you know, that you don't like and you want to talk through, I'm happy to do that. We're not trying to hide anything. This is to protect both of us on both ends of it. And I normally, when I have sit down meetings with them, like, obviously, you know, we try to negotiate a little bit on the phone, but I'll bring them a copy of the contract to their house or their business. I'll sit with them. I'll go through everything with them, really hold their hand throughout the entire thing so that they, you know, they feel comfortable with everything. And then I'll leave it with them. I say, like, you don't have to sign this right now, tonight. You know, I will need to know like in, you know, 48 hours, because I'll have to move on to another location if we can't reach an agreement. But usually if I, you know, make them feel like you have time, go bring this to someone, they're gonna sign it. You know, I'm not trying to hide anything. If it's like a driveway rental and I'm not getting a location, you know, contract, most of the time for that, I'll just be like, I'll just invoice them, like, use the driveway and we can get around it that way. But if it's one of our top locations, they gotta sign a contract.
Yeah, that's perfect. Sorry, I got a phone call in the middle. That's why I like
Yeah,
had to
no.
click decline as soon as you finished up talking. But I listened to everything and that was fantastic. What would you do normally? I just like missed the last part because it just cut
Yeah.
off. But um whenever you're like going out and seeking a location and they are kind of like for us or some of us in here because we're kind of like some of us are students too. Whenever we're
Mhm.
like kind of shooting a short and
Mm.
they're hesitant to allowing us to film there, which is understandable a lot of times. Most of the times I just pivot to another location.
Mhm.
But what's normally something that you should like kind of make clear to them before like you even go about negotiations or even like kind of bringing up negotiations, even though because most of the time when we're working with it's like 50 to like $100 maybe, or sometimes even free. So it's like, what would you kind of consider?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a little bit easier when you're working on like a larger project of my scale, because obviously we have giant insurance that's going to all, you know, they're all going to be covered under our $1 million coverage. And you know, and I have more than $100 to offer them. So obviously, like, you know, things are a bit easier when you're working with my budget. You know, I'm trying to remember in film school, I one of my biggest things is, you know, I would try to rely on my sphere, right? Your inner sphere. Like you, or like, does it have to be at a bar, or what can you transform into a space? So like, I would always say like, who do you know? Like, what are your resources? What do you have on campus? Who do you have as friends who own like bars or, you know, homes that you could use? It's harder to go out, or you have to just find someone who really, you know, go back to the student thing. You have to just be like, hey, I'm a student, like, you know, this is a big opportunity for me. You know, you have to kind of just gauge that interest. That's how I would go into it. I would also bring like information, like a flyer for them, like things that you could leave with them, right? Like, this is a little bit about myself, who I am, what my project is, what school I'm with, you know, a little like flyer that you can leave. I think always goes a long way, because say the owner's not there and you're just dealing with their, you know, their employee, having that piece of paper for them is huge to leave behind. And like I said, I think for film students, I relied heavily on my inner sphere, because yeah, I mean, it's hard out there. Like, you're not going to be able to walk into like, you know, a multi-million-dollar neighborhood and be like, hey man, like, I need this house for my film. It's just, unfortunately, probably not going to happen. I mean, hate to
Yeah,
say
that's normally
that.
how I go, but I'm just like,
Yeah.
here, can you help me out? I'm a
Yeah.
student.
I mean, I remember when I was doing projects, you know, it's really just what can you create from what you have? So like, what do you have at your school? Can your school cafeteria look like a restaurant? Can your school bar work as your bar? Can, you know, can you change your, you know, you need a club. Can you take your sound stage that you have at your school and put some disco lights in there and make it a dark gloomy, you know, what can you do with the resources you have? You know, your friends are living in student housing. Can you transform with like some furniture their house to, you know, make it look right? I think that's a lot of, unfortunately, what you have to do until, you know, or unless you get some funding behind your project, right? Unless you crowdfund and then you have some money to pitch towards locations. Um,
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
you're
That's
welcome.
great. Thank you. That's helpful.
Is there another
Yeah,
question?
thank you, Emily. This has been incredibly insightful. I was curious about locations outside the US, and if you could comment on that if possible.
I have not worked outside of the United States, unfortunately, so I don't know if I would be able to help with that. Yeah, I mean, I've only worked in New York, so, but you know, I know that Jeremy has done some work, obviously, in London and the Bahamas out there. There are scouts who literally, you know, locations as such, I think locations department, it's really important to get someone who knows the area, right? So if you're doing a project in London, or if you're doing a project in the Bahamas, if you're doing a project in LA, they a lot of the time want to work with locals, right? Because how do I find locations, or how do I get things done? It's knowing people who to talk to. It's me sitting in a coffee shop and talking to the person next to me and being like, oh, hey, just, starting a conversation and realizing that they own X, Y, and Z. It's just really a lot of networking and knowing your area to be able to get these things done. It's really important to have, relationships with the police, relationships with the county officials. So, yeah, so for something abroad, it's, a lot of the times they work with a local, or if it's a bigger network and they are bringing in a location manager from, let's say, not the area, their right hand, their assistant location manager, I for sure will guarantee is a local hire, and they're going to use them and all their resources for everything it's worth.
Pulling from a previous workshop to Connor, we hosted Perry Blake. He's a production designer. We hosted him a few weeks ago, and he was talking about Murder Mystery 2, which takes place in Paris and also on this like tiny tropical island. And he said they went to all these amazing locations. They went to actual islands that very few people would know the names of, and explored all these places. And as Emily focused so heavily on logistics, in the end, because of COVID numbers, Jennifer Aniston preferred to stay in the country. So they ended up shooting in Hawaii and made it look like this tiny island that they wanted to go to so badly, but because of COVID restrictions, ended up shooting in Hawaii. So I think that it probably is very similar to everything Emily's discussed, just on a much grander, larger
And then
scale.
to go into like a little bit different way of twist on this question, people will come to Syracuse and will, let's say, for the Ultimate Playlist of Noise, a movie we did, right? We filmed that all here, but we posed it to act like we were in New York City. So a lot of the time too, it's like, hey, Emily, I have this project. We want to be in, New York City. What can we get in Syracuse to look like that? So a lot of my job is trying to figure out like what buildings and areas we can transform into looking like another place. So like, let's say like, they're like, hey, Emily, we want to look like we're in, London. What kind of areas in central New York can we look like that? So that would be like more of what I've done in Syracuse, is pitching other places to pretend that they're here when we film in Syracuse. So that's another big aspect that I've had to deal with.
All right, then Emily, thank you so much for your time. This has been a really wonderful course, very in-depth and very informational, especially given that a lot of these attendees right now are new interns. This is a great workshop to start off the semester. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. Like I said, I'm available. It's Emily at American High. Happy to help. Always looking for assistance too. So if there's anyone who's ever like, hey, Emily, I'm interested in locations, PA in locations is a great way to start and build up from there. So send me your
Thank you so much, Emily. Have a good one.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.